Plastic surgery. It used to be a very taboo topic, but now people are so conditioned to it that cutting yourself open and changing a feature on your body seems somewhat normal. Online, you can find many tips, surgery stories, to what the new hot trending nose and procedures are, and I've even talked about plastic surgery a couple times on my channel as well. Big boobs, big butt, long nails, even the food portion size is bigger in the US, and I noticed a lot of people like things big here, like big, big, big.
I've always thought that men preferred bigger boobs and bigger butts. I think all females have gone through the phase where you kind of like think about getting boob jobs. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've thought about it too. Until I met someone and they're like, oh my god, never change who you are.
Facial beauty standard in US is really hard to pinpoint because here there's so many different ethnic races. In Asia, however, particularly I'll be focusing on Korea since I'm Korean and I can't really expertly comment on other countries. Korean beauty standards, which seems to also coincide with Chinese and Japanese beauty standards, is more focused on the face. In terms of body, Asians stick to more petite standard. Big boobs and butts aren't really a trend. It can be actually seen as more of a negative image. So beauty, in my opinion, also stems from the mindset of the collective. Let's look at the mindset of people in the US. Here, body positivity is a huge thing nowadays. Calling someone out based on how someone looks can be a big no-no, and people can be easily offended when it comes to outer appearance criticisms. Many times in Asia, it's usually a collectivism-based mindset, which can be great because the bond between you and your family or even strangers who become friends just hits different. In Korea, trends usually apply to everyone. When a certain nose or particular look is trending, everyone seems to want to get the same thing done. In Korea, from my personal experience, doctors would tell you what kind of nose shape is trending, and people bring in photos of the hottest influencers or celebrities to want to be inspired by. Also, Korean doctors deal with mostly Koreans or Asian faces. They know the features and structures of these Asian faces and bodies very well. So how about surgery in the West? How do you deal with different ethnic faces? Maybe like trending nose shapes in Korea? That could be the equivalent to like trending Brazilian butts in America. So to answer the burning questions, Dr. Gary Linkov, a famous plastic surgeon based in New York, you might have seen him on his YouTube channel as well, gave us the scoop on American plastic surgery.
Can you introduce us a little more about yourself and what you specialize in?
So I'm Gary Linkov. I'm a facial plastic surgeon and a hair transplant surgeon. And my background's in head and neck surgery, and then I subspecialized beyond that.
And I know you said you were super busy with work. That was one of my questions. How do you have time to film YouTube videos?
You just you find time. So it's not like you have full weekends off, or it's really not a very glamorous lifestyle. I don't know why some people think, oh, plastic surgery. I mean, maybe some people have a way about them that's like more fancy, and they go to fancy parties and they dress fancy. It's not me. I like what I do. I'm like a nerd about it. And my life is not fancy at all. So
you have, in Korean, we call it like a work habit. If you go out to meet strangers or friends, you like look at their faces and like kind of evaluate.
Well, I think usually like I turn it off, the analysis element, and then I can turn it on when I need to. But there are times when I start to see things in a bit more of like a medical, like, aesthetic analysis kind of way. But usually not. Usually I kind of turn it off.
Now, I've never been to outside of a Korean clinic or doctor, so I was so fascinated. Like, how do American doctors see the beauty and work on all these faces when we're all different here? Like, if I walked into a clinic where the doctor was non-Asian, would he really see eye to eye what I've personally wanted?
It's a good question. I mean, I think that most people want to stay true to their race. I mean, I don't think that I speak for everyone when I say that. When I get a patient who wants to look totally different than their actual race, I hesitate to do their surgeries, and usually it's not a great fit. What's interesting is that the actual anatomy and the structure is usually different. Like in terms of the diversity of it, yeah, I'm in Manhattan, so I mean, we get people from all walks of life, and yeah, you have to kind of be able to like understand understand the genetic, like, and anatomical underpinnings of each different race. And there's a lot of people who are like, multiracial. And so it becomes, it's sometimes a challenge exactly to predict, like, for example, in the nose, how prominent the nasal bones will be, how much cartilage will be there inside the nose. So it is really a case by case basis. You just have to be a little bit more flexible and knowledgeable of all, kind of different races. And also for hair, this is super relevant. So like Asian hair has a very different quality to it than like black hair, like African American patient hair, like, which is very curly. White people have like kind of thinner, straighter hair. Asian patients have like a bigger caliber of hair, but there's usually fewer total number of hairs. And same thing actually with African American patients, except the curl of the hair, is pronounced not just on the outside, but also on the inside. So the techniques of how we harvest the hair, how we move the hair, varies, depending on all these things. Yeah. So you have to be aware and up to speed on these differences.
I remember back when I was trying to get consultation of getting my rhinoplasty done, I brought in a picture of Angela Baby and I was like, doctor, can you make my nose like her? Like, I want to look like her. This is a very common thing in Asia where you actually bring in photos, but I didn't know that's not a common thing in America. Did you have anyone bring in like a K-pop star and say like, can you make me look like this person?
No, I don't get too many people who come in saying they want to look like a celebrity. I think that, yeah, I mean, most of my patients these days are seeing our YouTube content, and they, I think, understand my MO and how I approach this type of work. The people who come to us are quite serious about, surgery. And I think people who've done their homework and have really thought it through, I mean, they realize that they can't just turn into somebody else. It's just going to be about optimizing their face, make them the best version of themselves. But it's very rare for me to get someone who's like, oh, make me look like this person, whether it's a K-pop star or anyone else.
Usually if you walk into a Korean plastic surgery, they say, hey, you could do this with your eyes, with your nose. Do you do that, or only the parts that they want, the client wants?
Usually just what they ask me for. I'm not one to push for anything extra. It's not my style. There are times when certain procedures can be complementary. So like if you change one thing, it can make something else look a bit off, especially in like for aging face surgery. Older patients will come to me for like the lip lift where we shorten the philtrum. But if their neck and their jowls and everything is like super saggy, I remind them that everything ages together, and just to keep that in mind. Now, if they still choose to just focus on the philtral area, and that's what really bothers them, or like they just don't have the money for a big surgery, or they don't want to take on the risk, or some people just don't want any major changes, then we'll still just focus on what, but I feel like it's my job to at least highlight some other things. Also, like if someone's getting like a rhinoplasty and they feel like their nose sticks out too far and they want to deproject it, but let's say their chin is very much recessed back, and they just have a super weak chin, it's relevant to bring up augmenting the chin along with addressing the nose, because sometimes it's not so much that the nose is so far out from the face, it's that the chin is just too far back. So having that be all in line together, and synchronized and harmonious is usually the best approach. And also the chin is important for a strong neck. Some patients come in and they don't like that their neck hangs, or they don't like the angle, it's not acute. It sometimes like lift the neck, but if you don't augment the chin on a patient with a weak chin, the neck will never have like a nice contour, and then they might not achieve what they want even with the surgery.
What do you think about bone shaving in Korea? It's very popular to shave the chins and jaws. Do you do bone shaving? It's popular in America.
I don't do it in my practice. In my training, I did a lot of bony work, mainly for trauma and cancer surgery. So I have a lot of experience with it as far as like, back in my training. But in my practice, it's just not like a focal point. I think it can be quite transformative, and more so than just shaving. But I think oral surgeons with their ability to do orthognathic surgery can be very like hugely profound for the face. So those surgeries I think are very important for dentition. A lot of times people have poor dentition or weak bite or whatever it is because of the malposition of the teeth. So even for that, it's effective, but it's also super effective for overall just facial kind of aesthetics. So one thing I picked up, from doing all the bony work, especially for trauma patients, is that it's a long recovery and there's a lot of swelling. Once you get down to the bone, you start doing a lot of bony manipulation. If you're going to do this kind of like more rigorous, more like higher risk type of procedures, with bone, because bone, doesn't always heal great. And so if you're starting to make cuts into the bone and all these things, that's risky stuff. So if you're going to take on that risk, in my opinion, it ought to be at least in part for a functional purpose, as opposed to purely just changing the shape of someone's face to make them look better or feel better. There are obviously exceptions, caveats to that. I think, transgender surgery is one of those where someone, is born, in like the wrong body, you can say it might be worth for that person to undergo, high risk procedures. But I think you just have to be careful with some of those more intensive type of surgeries on the face, because they just carry bigger risks.
So the beauty standard for an Asian is to not have high cheekbones, but Asians in general have high cheekbones and more of a square jaw. I was thinking so hard and I wanted to get bone shaving when I was a trainee. All these like Korean beautiful celebrities have like V-line, they don't have like high cheekbones, which make you seem more mature. So I remember I went to the Korean clinic and I was like, I really want this done, 사장님. My company's 사장님, he took me there. But the only reason I didn't go through with it was because it was gonna take a long time to heal, and I was supposed to debut in a girl group, and like the debut was like close to the date, so it wasn't gonna work out. That's the only reason that pushed me back to not having it. But looking back, if I got bone shaving done, I would have regretted my life so much. Having like a nose complication, I mean, you could take the silicone out and then it's okay, but bones, like you're literally removing your bones and like all your nerves are in there. I got my wisdom teeth out and my nerves were gone for like months and it's still coming back. So think about actually removing your bones, you guys. That's so scary.
In Asia, it's popular to bring trending noses. There's trending noses every couple of years. How is that in America? Is there trending procedures?
Trending, you said trending for the nose, or just
like nose shapes?
Oh, nose shapes. Well, of course, trends definitely change. I try to stick to like classic beauty principles for the most part, and things that would survive the test of time. That's the way I like to see it. So I don't change my technique from like year to year based on like some trend.
I also remember during the time I was trying to get the nose done, like that Gangnam style was kind of trending, like that Gangnam nose, which is absolutely true that there's trending shapes and surgeries. Now if I think about that now, I'm like, that is crazy. Like it is permanent and we're trying to get things done that are trending.
These types of surgeries are more or less permanent. I mean, of course, you can do revision and whatever, but I don't think you should follow a trend and then think that, okay, well, the following year is going to be another. It's not like changing your outfit, because there comes a point where you've done so much surgery, there's so much scar tissue that your results will never be great, because it is a field that is not as regulated, like compared to some things where there's like insurance involved and that sort of thing. So there's the potential for activity that isn't really the most ethical in different places, and this goes for any part of the world. It doesn't matter where it is. Kind of a suggestion to patients is to find someone for whatever type of procedure you're interested in who truly like cares and has like a passion for what they do beyond just making money.
So I finally was able to get an answer on what really happened to my rhinoplasty that went wrong a couple of years ago. As you guys know, I did get a rhinoplasty, so I had to desurgerize and take out the silicone. I never really like gone back for a resurgery or putting anything foreign into my nose again, because it's scary.
I don't like to use silicone in the nose. I find that it's not reliable over time, because what happens is that it presses on the tissues on the inside and it starts to kind of extrude out of the skin sometimes. So it could be problematic. And also infections, you can have late infections like years later. The nose goes back to its original, because it's been in there, scar tissue has formed, so it's always going to be like a modified version. So I don't use silicone in the nose. I don't use anything superficial in the nose.
That's exactly what happened to me, where the silicone was pretty much protruding out. Why? I don't know. For some reasons, after several years, my body just thought that the silicone was a foreign substance, and it just wanted to push it out of my body. So it's like years after, my body just did not want to have any foreign silicone objects in my body. That's one of the reasons why I personally would never get any like boob jobs or put any foreign substance in my body ever again, because I just know personally my body will reject it even years into being okay.
Sometimes you just need more tissue, more cartilage than you have in the nose, right? So where else can you get it? So like next best place is usually the ear, but from the ear, you get a lot of like a little bit of weaker cartilage and curved cartilage. So then to make it straight, you either chop it up into little straight pieces that you can use, but that has its limitations. Or if you need more material, I like to get cadaveric rib cartilage, because the alternative to that is the person's own rib. There are pros and cons to your own rib versus cadaveric, which is like a dead person's rib.
Did you know that sometimes in plastic surgery you use a dead person's body part? For me, unless it was like life and death reasons, like you're getting like an organ transplant, beauty reasons, I don't know if I'll do that.
That's been processed, and checked for every possible virus or whatever. The cadaveric rib tends to kind of mummify, because it's not like it becomes you, like it'll never become you. It mummifies in there and really does preserve its form and function. So I find it very dependable. I find it's a little safer than harvesting the person's own rib, which is like could be a big deal. From your own rib, it's a little bit more likely to warp. The rib comes out like a curved shape, and we cut it down to try to get these straighter pieces. A straighter piece, what starts to look straight over time, could become more curved. I've seen some noses turn into like a C because of the warping that can happen late. And then the latest technique, especially for dorsal, because a lot of Asian patients and some of my Black patients want like more height to their bridge. And a great way to do that, which is like the latest sort of technique that I'm doing and some of my colleagues, is basically taking the cadaveric rib and grading it. So not even like cutting it, but actually like grading it. So it's almost like not a powder, but like, like garlic. And taking that, putting it into this mold that was created by a surgeon in South Korea, put it in there, and then you take surgical glue, which is called to seal, is one form of surgical glue, and you basically like put it into the mold that has the graded cartilage, and you let it settle, and then you remove the mold, and you have your graft that you're taking out of the mold. The graft then gets inserted up here, and you can customize like how thick it is, how long it is, how wide, based on the mold that you select. It's been working really well overall, and I think it's a powerful technique for dorsal augmentation.
Someone asked, was there a moment where you ever thought, I don't see anything wrong with you, but you paid for it, so I'll go for it?
And so there are patients who want something that I just don't really see being effective for them, but I'll just tell them that. I'll just let them know. There are cases that are like in a gray area where don't really need it, but they're still technically candidates. Those types of situations, I really want to make sure that, first of all, the person has an appetite for some degree of risk. So I always want to make sure that there's enough delta, like enough room for change, because if I can't show the change, if I can barely see what the situation is that they're worried about, then how am I possibly going to see it improve? And I also think about people's really tolerance for risk. Because that's what a lot of this comes down to, because things can go wrong. I mean, it's surgery. So it's because some of them get annoyed, because look, like they've waited a while, they've paid money, and here I am telling them like, I'm not going to make their dreams come true, right? So you can imagine some people get upset, but I tell them like, you don't want to have a situation where you're like convincing the doctor to do your surgery. You want to just be on the same page and like, okay, like I see your vision. I think I can make this happen. Here's how I'm going to do it. Like, that's how it should flow.
A lot of people ask, are there any surgeries not worth it or recommend?
Yeah, well, there was one that I did a whole video on for buccal fat removal. I'm not a fan of it. I think that it might work to a degree, even if you, like, let's say it goes safely and you tolerate it fine, yeah, maybe it'll look okay when you're young, but when you get older, that's where you're going to wish you had the buccal fat back. Most of the fat of the face, sags and atrophies or breaks down as we get older. But that's one type of fat that actually doesn't. I mean, sometimes it can like the tissues around it can loosen, so it can start to be a little poochy, but that doesn't happen that often. And so usually it's just kind of there, giving you some structure and support in this like mid cheek area. So if you had it removed early in life, most people will end up regretting that. So, you know, I think about not just the short-term gains, but the long-term, you know, and hair also, it's a big thing, because especially when like it's a younger guy who is at risk of further recession and further losing his hair, you know, but they want like a transplant when they're younger, you have to like really have a long conversation with those patients and make sure that they understand like pros and cons and how the things might change over time. And I don't want someone getting surgery now and then regretting it 10 years later. I mean, that would not make me happy. They just want it now, you know, they're not really thinking about what it's going to look like in 10 years. They don't necessarily care. When 10 years rolls around, they're going to care. It's because I hate hearing like when people like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. You know, like I want people to do a surgery with me and then be grateful for it and happy with it for years to, yeah.
The last question people had was, as a plastic surgeon, would you ever do it to yourself one day?
I'm assuming they mean like not like literally me.
No, not on yourself.
But like it would have to bother me enough because, you know, I really know the risks and everything quite well. And also like with my lifestyle, like I don't really have time to just, you know, recover for a few weeks or whatever. And if over time, let's say something sags and it's bugging me and whatever, yeah, I mean, I'll do it and I'll make a video about it.
Has a surgeon ever done it on their own family member?
It's not recommended, and I wouldn't. I've only done very small little like mole removals on family members. I mean, I know of people, like I've had mentors throughout my training who's operated, they've done facelifts on their wives, for example. I wouldn't. I think that your judgment can be clouded, you know, because what if you encounter a problem during surgery, blood loss? What if, you know, there's just too many things. You're too emotionally tied to the person, hopefully, to really have like an unbiased sort of ability to do the surgery.
Well, thank you so much for your questions and your time.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Grace, thanks for inviting me again. And, you know, I hope this was helpful to your peoples.
So it seems like all plastic surgeons have different unique styles of how they go about their practice. So I highly recommend that you guys find someone that you can trust and do enough research. You know, when I was younger, I thought that plastic surgery was like magic. It was a quick way out of your ugliness. But as time passed, I've learned that true beauty is about accepting yourself. I really love how Dr. Gary pointed out that you need to think about the long term. We all age. Every single one of your favorite celebrities and yourself. You have to know that you're going to be carrying this out for a lifetime. But I get it. When I was 22, I didn't care. I personally wish I had a doctor like Dr. Gary who actually cares about the patients and explains to you the benefits and the risks. So what is true beauty to you guys? Is beauty really in the eye of the beholder? When there's so many people influencing you to get something done, that you're ugly, that you're pretty, that you're this and that. At the end of the day, I believe that plastic surgery can be a great tool to boost your confidence, especially for those, you know, who might have health complications. Dr. Gary is on YouTube, so you guys could check him out. And if you guys need a consultation, see you guys in my next video.